Yeah.
But other
Well,
than
good.
that,
Then I'm actually really glad you're here today. We're going to have a great conversation around this.
okay, good.
I see Alexandra's in the house. All right. Well, we're going to get started. I turned the recording back on so we can get the call recorded. All right. So, yeah, today's conversation is around seller appointments. And I really hope that what you guys will take away from today is really how do we get more seller appointments and what do we do at the seller appointments to lock up those appointments. So one thing that would, rather than just like have a class where we talk about it and get some good information, I mean, if you guys are in a spot where you can participate a little bit, just let me know kind of where are you getting your seller appointments from. Probably even more important question is there something specific that you're doing every day to look for real estate, whether it's a seller or buyer, but specifically seller appointments, and how is that going or not going? Are you not doing it enough? Are you maybe not looking for it enough? Are you really working at it every single day and just not getting the appointments? Or, I mean, for me to get you guys the best information out of this is to know what you're doing now and what is working or not working. I don't know if anybody has anything they want to share on what you've done or not done. Don't know for sure. Probably not doing. Well, would you say that you're probably not doing enough activities to get seller appointments?
Yeah, I'm not doing enough activities to get seller appointments.
Okay, cool. Now, that's not saying you're lazy, by the way. That's not saying that you're failing as a realtor. It's just, I mean, we just want to know, be honest with ourselves of what we're doing and not doing. And to get the seller appointments, we got to get into a conversation around real estate. So the reason I ask that is do you feel like you're working pretty good at real estate? Or, I mean, there's other people, some people are in real estate because of the flexibility and they, kind of let it happen and do that. Or is real estate, even for you, Allison, I'm not sure if Alexandra's in a spot where she can talk or not or share. Hopefully she can be. But is real estate something that you're making a living off of it and there's a certain amount of money you want to make at it? Or is it kind of an extra thing that's really just bonus?
For me, I just like the helping people aspect. So I haven't worked as hard to get more people, both buyers and sellers right now, just because I've been spending a lot of time with my family.
So would you say it's not a set income that you're not having to pay your bills with real estate, or are you paying bills with real estate?
I don't really have to because my husband's income.
Perfect.
Obviously, though, anytime is more is better. But because I watch my kids full time also. Well, they go to school a couple days a week, but so I've been trying to get more done when they're at school.
Yeah, and that's awesome to know because I mean we totally are here to help people create a lifestyle and a business that's worth it for them to own, not for what we think you should be doing. And if it gives you the flexibility to be with your kids, I mean, that is incredible. Now, also with that, though, we also know that if for some reason I showed up tomorrow and said, hey, I've got 5 listings that are ready to go on the market, and I'm going to give you 5 listings to really test your stuff out and go. Now, I know that first part of it probably is like, oh, well, I wouldn't even know what to do. My world would be upside down. But they're easy. These are like past clients. They've got 5 properties they need to get sold, and they're going to put them on the MLS today, and you get to market them and get them on MLS and all that stuff. When those all sold and closed, that extra $20,000 sitting in the bank would probably allow you to do something pretty cool, right? That you'd like to do, but maybe haven't done yet.
Definitely.
Yeah. So like, what would you do? I mean, if I gave you 5 listings, let's just say for real, I gave you 5 listings right now, and they're absolutely going to close in the next 30 to 60 days. What's the first thing you would probably spend that extra load of cash on?
Probably looking at buying an investment property.
Awesome. Cool. And there is a lot of that around that area too. I mean, that's an amazing investment property area. Cool. Alexander, you want to throw anything in?
Yeah, of course. I know for me, if I had that extra money from listings, I would probably use it for my college. I'm still in college right now, getting my marketing degree. So use it for that. Maybe go on a vacation at the end of the year because I'm living with my boyfriend right now, rent free. So, a good saving up money.
I'm so glad you guys are on this call today, because this is kind of the opening thing of where we're going to kind of start the call, and how you guys can actually, how anybody, like, you're not too far different from a lot of people that have gotten into real estate that do need to make it work. And they're just taking a stab at a lot of things and trying to get it going. And they're just not getting enough opportunities. And it's a lot of times it comes down to, are we doing the right activities and right stuff? So I'm actually glad that you both are sharing this, because it's not like you have to get it to survive. And not that I get mean with somebody that's like, well, you better do it then if you're not going to get your bills paid. That's not the case. The case is that if we did get some more opportunities to practice, then we can be as busy or not as busy as we want to be based on where it fits in the schedule and so forth. So this first one, I'm making seller listing presentations and getting listings. I mean, the very, very first step is obviously getting the list or getting the appointment so that you can practice the stuff that we're talking about today. And one of the things that we started from the very beginning of this Ignite session was I layered in the master list, where you're basically taking a notebook and write down everybody from Facebook, everybody from your cell phone, and probably even more importantly, that you, hopefully you have all done this, and get a list where you're just, while you're at home with the kids, while they're at nap, or while you're in school and in between, classes, or you've done your homework and you're just kind of hanging out, that you're just kind of doing a little bit of research for a little bit each day to find an address and a phone number for as many people on that list as you possibly can. Because you have other things going on, this list becomes your capture page. So it's not like I go here and I find something and I do real estate for a little bit, and then I go back and do my stuff, and then I come back and I look over here, and then I look over here and go back to doing my stuff. And it's like that hodgepodgeness doesn't get us any consistency. And without the consistency, we're not getting enough at bats, and we're not getting enough at bats. We're not going to get as many listings as we could. And as you practice this and follow this path that I'm about to share with you, for anyone, this is for everyone, not just you two. It's for anyone who's listening to this recording afterwards, any point in their career, that if you have that list and you could use the stuff that we're talking about today as soon as possible while it's fresh in your mind. Because I honestly believe that when we talk about it, you'll be a little excited about the listing side of your business, the actual presentation and all this stuff. Because if you're calling your list, knowing that 98% of them are probably not selling, we're not actually calling to sell. We're not calling to get them as a seller. We're calling them as our friend or an acquaintance that hopefully you've reconnected with. So what I'm about to share with you won't work for the first call as effectively, unless they're thinking about buying or selling. And if they are thinking about buying or selling, then you're going to be able to roll right into everything that we've talked about today and give it a shot and go for it. But what I'm talking about is go ahead. Oh, I thought somebody was asking a question. What I'm talking about is if you have that list, and let's just say you went through it and you used the family, occupation, recreation, dreams, you just connected, you wrote them a handwritten note there. I'm telling you, that is the gold mine right there to get on the path to selling a lot of homes every single year without having to go find them. So you start that, you connect, you write the note, and now the next call, like in an 8x8, we've talked about 8 touches in 8 weeks. Week 4 is a phone call again, and week 8 is a phone call again. And if you can put them in command, for example, and have a smart plan that will just tell you when it's been 4 weeks for that particular person, and you just focused on connecting with 5 people a day. If both of you did 5 people a day out of your notebook, and started them on this plan. You're gonna have 4 calls or 5 calls in 4 weeks, and you're gonna have 5 calls in 8 weeks. Now, if you did it 5 days a week, every day, 5 days a week, and you added 5, you'll actually have 10 phone calls in week 8. But you won't have 15 or 20 8 weeks later. It'll be 10 for a long time, because once that 8 touch plan ends, we switch them over to a 36 touch, and the next phone call is not for 4 months. So if you truly stuck to it at 5 people a day every day, and you were that regimented, it might be 6 months or 9 months before you're actually even up to 15 or 20 calls in a day. And that's not even unmanageable, because you've already talked to those people 3 and 4 times up to that point. So the phone calls are shorter, or you're even talking more naturally and you're skipping most of those. So I've run this formula out, and you'll probably have about 10 calls a day, but they're all follow-up calls and nurture calls, not new calls. There's only 5 new calls a day to connect with somebody. So if you took the stuff that we're learning today and you just share that with the friends that you've connected with. So this could be a week 4 call, and it might be a week 8 call. So it's not going to be immediate, but you can call your family if you need immediate. So let's just say, for example, the information today blows you away. You love everything you hear. I want to practice it. The best way to practice it is be on your calls. And just if you're talking to a friend that you've connected with and written the note with, you could call them at some point and say, hey, I've got this new way of figuring out values on homes, because you're going to figure out, we're going to actually cover a CMA class on how to do the values on the homes. But I've got this way of figuring out values on homes. I'd like to just take you through the process so I can get your opinion on it. I want to get better at it. I want to provide value to the people that I meet that are ready to sell. I know you may not be selling, that's fine. I just want to take you through the process and actually run a value on your home. Now, that is a very low key way for you to get in and actually follow the process, because now it's your friend who you've connected with that's going to help you, and they probably want to see you succeed in real estate. So you could even jump off of this call today and get right into your mom and your brothers and your family members and say, hey, I really need to practice real estate on you. Can you meet with me for a listing, a seller presentation? I mean, your family hopefully is excited about you being in real estate, and they'd be like, yeah, now I want you to just sit through the process and tell me what you like, what you don't like, what you think I could add, and what I could do better. And you do that with 4 or 5 family members, you are gonna feel more confident and comfortable with the process, and you're gonna figure out where you drop the ball and do all that stuff. So you get to do it while you're practicing. And I'm also gonna say that what you're also going to find is that whoever you do this with, you plant a little real estate seed in their mind that starts watering itself, and it starts growing, and they actually become a seller before they would have had you not done it. So you're actually creating a pipeline of business at the same time while they're helping you out. Because I'm telling you, when you sit down and you go over the values, they're going to be like, are you serious? Like, we could get that for our house. It's like, that's what this stuff is showing us, you know? So anyway, you guys get that? Was that good stuff? Does that get you a little more excited about maybe practicing? I hope.
For sure, for me.
Yeah. So have fun with it, right? Have fun with it, and ask your friends if they'll just let you just let me run. I want to practice running this formula and practicing values. So hearing your opinion on what that value comes out to be and what you would want to know as a seller is going to help me too. So it's fun. So the one thing I will tell you though, now I'm going to take you through the process. I told you how you can now start getting some seller appointments if you don't have very many or don't have any at all. Start doing it with anybody, right? And anyone in the office. Another really good thing I do, or I suggest you do when you're in training, is look at the people that are in the classes, and I write down their names. I mean, and I want to connect with everyone in there. And maybe just give a call, introduce yourself. We're all in the same office together. We don't all know each other. So it gives you an opportunity to talk to each other and get another friend in the office. So I saw you in Ignite, so I wanted to reach out. And so what's some of the stuff you've got? Now you've become a little mastermind and you didn't even know it was happening. And it just helps you get that confidence where pretty soon, if you do connect with somebody in the right way, you'd be like, hey, let's practice our seller presentation. Yeah, I would love to do that. Go have lunch, you get to hang out and practice it. So anyway, that's the biggest key, which is the biggest challenge. Not even just doing this in an hour, 3 days a week. Even if it was a full day class, the biggest challenge is the homework afterwards, which kind of leads me to this next slide. There was homework early on in Ignite where we talked about value proposition. And the value proposition, and I know this is tough for a lot of newer agents when they're first starting, they don't know what their value is. So you're kind of writing down what you do as a real estate agent to provide value for our clients. And this is going to help you understand what some of those might be. But if you remember the value proposition section that we did, what I suggested was make that list of everything that you do to provide value. Try to pick 2 or 3 things that your competitors can't say they can do. Now that's a little bit of a higher level kind of master thinking and a high level of thinking to think, well, what can I do that my competitors can't do? There's something about you at your level of business, no matter what it is, that you're going to do way better than most realtors could do. In fact, if you are like actually available around where your phone is and you text back people right away, and you're just more in tune to that because you don't have a ton of business like an agent that's selling, 50, 70, 100 homes a year or whatever, a big team and everything's farmed out, you could always say, you get a call back within a minute or two when you're working with me. So if you have any question at all, you don't have to wait for an answer. That could be a value proposition that your competitors wouldn't be able to, in most cases, say. Like if somebody said, well, I've talked to somebody, they give a call back within 2 minutes every time, I'd be like, well, I can't do that. I would probably have to go the other route and say why that's not that important. But if you sold it better than I did, then you would get the listing, right? And most people just want to know that you're available. And which kind of brings us to this, how they found well, it's the next slide actually. But so when you're coming up with your value proposition, think about how people are finding the seller appointments and then relate that to what I just said at the very beginning. So 39% are referred by a friend or neighbor or relative, right? Or they are a friend or relative or neighbor. Okay, that's 39%. And 27% wasn't used an agent previously. Yet, what you're figuring out, and what you've all figured out probably so far, is people are focusing on internet, Facebook banner ads, social media, talking to people. We just had a whole session on open houses, and they met the agent at the open house. Look at the percentages. It's 5%, 4%, 3% visited an open house. The 5% personal contact by the agent. So I just want to put this into perspective on my layer and my hounding. I feel like I hound everybody about the master list, your Facebook friends list, and your phone. Yet cold calling 5% of the time they hired a seller, 4% from the internet, which is actually high. It's converting off the internet is more like 1 to 2%. I've seen as high as 3%. And then visiting open house. I mean, the conversation that came up during the open house session was out of 20 people, we picked up 3 new buyers. I mean, that's like getting close to the 3% rule, right? So it's a small percentage, yet the realtors are spending 80 to 90% of their time in those fields, when in actuality, all they did is go back to their friends, connect with them. That's where 39% of the people are. So that's why I suggested to ask them if you can run a value on their home and take them through your seller presentation, because you want to make sure you're providing value for your clients and you'd love their opinion on it. Second thing on this, and then I'll pause out and see if you guys have any questions or anything you might want more clarity on. This actually ties more to the value proposition side of what are you doing for the person. And as you're making that list, you can see that this pie chart's pretty even across the board. 21%, the seller needs somebody to help them to market their home. And a lot of times when I'm talking to a newer agent, because marketing isn't taught in real estate school, most newer agents have no idea how to market a home. But in actuality, Keller Williams, if you remember some of the graphics and stuff that we've talked about, is your website or your houses, your listings are going on over 350 websites. When you take a listing and put it in MLS, that is marketing the home. Now, you may have heard me say MLS doesn't necessarily sell houses, it makes them available. But at KW, actually, let me back up. At MLS, they are farming it out to Realtor.com, Zillow, Trulia, all those websites, right? And then when you plug it into your KW part of the system, it's going to another 200 websites that MLS doesn't go to, because we're now, I think Mark said today, I think we're approaching 200,000 agents now worldwide. There's like no company in history that's had 200,000 real estate agents in their company. Never. Like, I don't even know if it ever broke 100 before KW even did. So I don't think there's ever been a company that has 100,000 agents. Don't hold me to that. But so on that, helping you market your home, you're already marketing it to 3 times more websites than most people. So that's the kind of stuff you want to write down. And there's tons of stuff in Command that you can pull up to create your value proposition, right? The second thing on here, 20%. So that was 21%. 20% was help sell the home in a specific time frame. So again, once you master pulling up, I wouldn't say master, once you know how to pull up a market analysis and you can see what your average days on market is, things like that, that's what we're going to show them with their neighborhood, what's on the market, what's gone under contract, and what is sold, and what the average days on market is. We're also going to pull up their house in the area, what's the average days on market for the ones that sold. Or you could even say, what's the average days on market for the ones that are pending, because that time frame might even be shorter than the solds. And I'm just kind of explaining this so you guys can feel more comfortable around these conversations. And any questions you have, just stop me, unmute yourself, raise your little hand, and I'll pause out. But when I look at solds, the pendings might be a shorter days on market because that's the current market right now when there's a shortage of homes. The other thing, when you're saying a specific time frame, if you pull up the neighborhood and there's 4 pending and say 10 or 15 solds over the last 6 months or a year, and there's no actives, and then if I pull up their house, their floor plan in the MLS area, and there's no actives, and there's 7 pendings, and there's 35 solds in the last 12 months to a year. So that's telling you there's nothing for sale right now. And there's 7 properties pending like yours in the area. In fact, 3 of them were in your neighborhood too. The time frame is going to be fast. So that's how they want. If they see that in your CMA, that's one of the things they're looking for. And then the next one, that's still 19%. These are all big pieces of the pie. It's pretty evenly split. So when you're writing out your value propositions, you want to line it up at least with these, well, all 5 of them. You want to line your value proposition up. In fact, maybe even do a screenshot of this or write these down or watch this again, one of the 3, and come up with things that match those items. Because if you show up with a value proposition of those items, that's what most sellers want anyway. You don't even have to talk about anything else or figure out what the rest of the value propositions are. And then you can also figure out what 3 are you that maybe competitors can't say. And if you ever need help with any of that stuff or working through, write out your value proposition, send it to me. Let me help you work through that and ask a couple more questions, and we can probably dig out what your real true 3 things are that a competitor can't say. Bah, my tongue got stuck. So, and then the 19% was help price the home competitively. 16%, which is still up there, is help fix the home up and sell it for more, right? So again, you may not have the confidence or the experience if you're a newer agent as far as what things will add value and what things won't, but that's what sellers are looking for. An alternative answer to the same exact question could be, and this is just for your information, in a market like this, where there's no houses for sale and there's 7 pending, which that's not all uncommon from anything you'd see in just about anywhere. If you see 7 pendings and nothing for sale, so what do we have to fix up to get more money? the answer might be nothing. You don't have to do a thing to your house right now. And they'd be like, what? To get more money? There's nothing else for sale. I mean, right now, there is nothing else for sale. So if there were 10 houses for sale that would be competing for your buyer, then I might have to fix up more. Now, I'm not saying it's an automatic response, but if there is no houses for sale, right, and the last 4 houses are selling even higher than what your property, what you thought the property would be, they probably don't have to fix up much of anything, because they're probably going to have 20 showings and 3 people. And if you're going to get that kind of traffic on a house, somebody's going to say, I'll pay cash and I'll buy it as is if I can have the house. Right? So those are the things that you want to pay attention to as you're getting through. And I'm sharing this information so that you guys can kind of get a little shortcut to confidence in those conversations and helping understand how markets work. So actually, let me pause out there. I mean, is this good information? Are you guys picking up something? And if so, what are you picking up, so that I know that I'm sharing the right information with you, that you're getting value out of today? Are you getting anything out of this? What's helping you so far?
To me, it's new information that you don't really have to add anything to the house to create more value in it. I never really thought of it that way, or have like seen that sort of perspective, which I really enjoy. And then the open houses as well, I really like that information too.
Awesome.
And I think a lot of people are waiting to list because of that, like needing to fix stuff up. But I've been seeing that a lot on Facebook and stuff too. People just, a lot of realtors saying, don't change anything, just list your house now. And then a lot of people that aren't realtors are like, oh, okay. Because they just kind of assume they need to fix stuff and do things to make their house marketable.
Oh, man. Okay, so listen to this. Here's your value proposition that your competitors won't say. So if you're actually up against somebody, and you can say, you know, I bet any other realtors you've talked to have told you to fix all this stuff up and do all this stuff. And this is a script, by the way. They've suggested that you fix some things up. Well, it's real easy for them to spend your money to sell the house faster and make them a commission check faster. Now, I'm going to pause for a minute. This may sound mean, but you are competing for a listing. And when you're competing for a listing, you need to take your competition out of the game. You got to defunk something that they're saying without talking bad about them. And I'm not talking bad about them. Here, the script that I'm saying is most realtors will probably tell you to fix up some things, and it's real easy for a real estate agent to spend your money to fix things up. I mean, I could tell you to fix up all kinds of stuff. It's not necessarily going to get you more money, especially in a market like this, where I'll be honest with you, there's nothing else for sale. That a couple little minor things here and there probably are not going to cause the house to sell for much less when we're going to get competing bids. But I'm going to give you another script that I want you guys to catch this one. Sometimes there might be more stuff to do than like you get there and it needs a lot of work. That conversation might be, you know, if you were going to fix up anything, you almost need to fix up everything. You guys know what I'm talking about? Pretty dated house. There's a lot of stuff that needs to be fixed up. So spending some money on a few things like updating the kitchen, putting granite in the countertops when you have paneled walls in the family room, that is the biggest waste of money anybody could put in that property, because having granite countertops isn't going to make the paneled walls go away if that would drive the value down. So it's saying, like, if you're going to do any work at all and update anything, you might as well just plan to update it all. And then we need to figure out is if it's all completely updated, will it bring that much more value, right? And it's because you guys are grasping this, I want you to understand this, that if it would cost them 20 grand to fix the house up, the only time I would feel comfortable suggesting that is if I knew for an absolute fact they're going to get 40,000 more than if they don't fix it up. Does that make sense? So the other part of that conversation is Mr. Miss Seller, when somebody suggests you fix stuff up, if you do a couple of things and don't fix the rest of it, you're still going to get beat up by the buyer on things need to be done, too much updating, all that stuff. So you either do it all, or listen to this setup, or just sell it for a little less than you thought you would sell it for, but not spend any money and take the risk to see if you maybe get it back. Now, let me say that again, because it's a benefit. Like when they hear this, I just set them up to lower the price a little bit. But I said, instead of fixing it up and spending money and hoping you get that money back, I mean, in this market, even if you sold for a little less than you wanted and you didn't spend that money and you to try and get it back, you're selling it for a little bit less, but you're selling it as is, right? And I wouldn't really ever market anything as is. That already tells them to come in even lower. But I would say we're going to market it just like it is. And without doing the repairs, yeah, you might sell it for a little bit less, but you didn't do the repairs and you didn't spend the money out of pocket. So hopefully you guys are picking up on a couple of things there, those are the conversations on what do they need to fix, because they're looking for that. And when you have that conversation different than your competitors are, you just brought your value proposition to the table where your competitors wouldn't say it. And every realtor is trained to tell them to fix everything. Oh yeah, new carpet, fresh paint, all that. Yes, in a competitive market, you have to. So anyway, hopefully that helps you there. So with that, coming into the presentation or the process, if you're going to play that game where you want to get some presentations going and you're working through your sphere to get those appointments, especially after you've connected with them, like you connect, family's doing well, you've written the note, you've got them on a drip, and then somewhere down the line, 4 weeks, 8 weeks later, or even into your 36 touch, it could be a month or two later. You're just like, hey, one of the things I wanted to do was just run the value of a home, the listing whole process. Do you mind if I just, can you meet with me to go through that process and let me know what you think? Take them through the process just like it is. So if you're talking to somebody and they say, yeah, I'll do that. I mean, I'll help you out. They're not thinking about selling, but you're also going to plant the seed for what their value is. But they say, yeah, I don't mind helping you out. It's like, great. So part of this process that I follow through is I ask, this is the questionnaire. Oh, let me get it focused there. I'm going to ask you a couple things about the house and get some basic information so I can pull up what the market's been doing in those areas. And that's what I'll bring over when I come over. And then I'll take you through the process of how we determine price of the property and what the market might bear and all that other stuff. So I appreciate you doing this. That's awesome. They're like, oh yeah, no problem at all. So this will just take a couple of minutes. Tell me about your house. And then just follow the process. Don't skip anything. Don't shortcut it. That's your pre-listing questionnaire, right? So, and there's a couple of things on here. Well, this just popped into my head. If you've ever had a Cutco knife representative call you, they're college kids that sell knives, right? I'm sure in real estate, if you've been to enough training or you will go to enough training, you're going to meet Cutco people. They hang out in our world. They love selling us branded knives. But the Cutco person will say, hey, I'm a college kid and I get college credits and these guys pay for my college. If I can take you through this presentation, I'm really just kind of practicing. Do you mind going through the process? So my daughter in Chicago, 26 years old, right? And my stepson, when he was just out of high school, he got a job with Cutco and he called all of his family like they have you do. And he's like, so do you mind giving me some help? It's kind of what we're talking about on the listing, right? And of course, my daughter is like 26 years old, just got her new job, and she lives in Chicago, right? So she's like, well, yeah, is this just a practice thing? Yeah, it's just practice, take you through the process. So she's like, okay. And she's going through and he's asking her the questions just like they're set up. And you have pre-listing packets, but you also have listing presentations in command. They're all in there, already done with graphics, all kinds of stuff, gives you the topics to talk about. It's all in command. So you definitely want to schedule some time to just go in command and play around and pull some of those up. So she's going through the process and he gets to the end and he's like, so could you see the benefit of having the whole package? And she's like, yeah. He's like, great. What's your card number? What's the best card number for you? And she's like, oh, is this still part of the practice thing? And he's like, oh no, I just need your card number to get that ordered for you. She's like, oh, okay. And she was like, she called me and goes, I thought I was practicing and he just got my card number and sent me this whole knife set. And it's like, it's family that was helping him out. On a side note to that, what is funny about doing exactly what I said, just do it, man. And ask people if you can come to a value on their house and let you know what they think of the process, right? When you do that, you are planting a seed about as soon as they see that number or whatever value you came up with, whether it's right or wrong, you did plant a seed and now they're thinking about it and they weren't even thinking about it before you called them. So you will create some business just by doing this by accident, but it'll be a good accident because they're going to get more money for their house right now than any market we've ever had. Now, I'm going to share a script with you towards the end on closing the deal if you want to use it. I almost think it's unfair to use it because if they're moving, they might just list with you right there on the spot. So again, once you get into practicing, you can throw that one out there and not feel bad about it. Like he did not feel bad about taking her credit card and getting her the knives. And actually, she loves the knives. I mean, they're her Cutco knives. And she still laughs about how she got them, but that could happen too. So follow the process is what I'm getting at. And we'll kind of go through that process. Any questions so far about anything or clarity or any drunk monkeys talking to you about anything? Okay. So in the pre-listing, that's like the goal. What you want to do before you get there is create that value, pre-sell yourself, and save time when you come over for the listing appointment. So typically when you're getting this questionnaire, you're kind of talking about that value proposition. If you have it in front of you, you're going to be able to use some of that and you'll probably address some of those more at the appointment. But what you're doing is once you get going and you've done this a few times, you're going to be able to pre-sell by asking questions, finding out like the second, I believe it was the second or the third session we had during Spark was mastering your why. Actually, I think it was the first session was what's your why. When you get masterful at asking or finding out what people's why is, and I'll play this out as if you were calling your sphere and saying you wanted to come over and do an appointment, you would follow the process and you would say something like, so if you did move today, that would be to your sphere who's helping you out to let you do a listing presentation, right? So let me just ask, if you were to move today, where would you move to? And whatever they say, it's their side of town here, Florida, whatever, saying, why is that important to you? Take them through the process because you want to get good at pre-selling and asking questions to shortcut the process. And when you master knowing what somebody's why is, it'll allow you to bring that into the conversation and actually drive that to a close. Now, you're not going to push super hard for this on your friends in the sphere, but you do want to ask the question. Like, I do want to know, like, if you were moving and just if you can envision that you were actually wanting to sell and we were talking, where would you guys move to? It's like, oh, well, I've always wanted to move to Florida. Okay, well, what's important about that? Sun and beaches, are you kidding? Blah, 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 whatever. And you just ask a couple of questions, just like you would normally do on finding out somebody's why. It's like, okay, great. And so now I got all the information. I've got their why. I've got all that stuff. And then on the save time for answering objections and getting them up front is a lot of times you can even send them like the seller's disclosure ahead of time. Say, well, I'm going to come over Thursday and we set the appointment stuff. I'm going to send you a couple things ahead of time that I just want you to go through if this is your sphere, I just want you to go through and answer the questions as if you were thinking about selling, and let me know what you think about the process. I want to make sure that it works easy online and blah, blah, blah. It asks questions about your house, and then I get to go over the disclosure with you. So the seller's disclosure is something we might send ahead of time so they can work on that and go through and answer the questions. So hopefully you're kind of seeing now that even getting them involved in the process and them agreeing to help you, that you're taking them through the process and they're really experiencing it so they can let you know, yeah, that was real easy to do. And I didn't know you had to answer all those questions when you sell your house, right? Any questions so far before I move on to the next? Are you guys, let me get a feel from you if you can even unmute and just give me a little feedback. Is this good stuff? Are you getting something that you might be able to grab onto and use?
Yes, definitely.
Okay. All right. So on the pre-listing, that's pre-listing goals. The pre-listing packet. So there are pre-listing packets in Command, and a lot of times that pre-listing packet is the seller's disclosure and some other stuff like that. But it's good to figure out what you want to get to them ahead of time. Like if you want them to have homeowners documents out, whatever any warranties or anything on any appliances, or if they had a roof put on or some other stuff, you could have a list of just different things in there. I will tell you personally that we used to do a pre-listing tub, and the pre-listing tub, actually, I got to preface this by saying, first of all, working the database and working the list did not require a pre-listing packet to earn their trust or earn their confidence. When you turn your business around to where it's coming to you and your phone is ringing, you don't have to have all this extra sales stuff in there. And here's what we figured out. And this is my team. They did a tub and they did a seller survival kit. So it's a fun idea. And if you don't do anything, this could be very impressive. I will tell you that people were impressed with it, but I'll tell you the reason why we didn't do it anymore. The tub was a seller survival kit, and it had in there like the magic eraser for like erasing marks on walls. And we had a list of things. It's like the magic eraser to spruce your home up and get rid of those shoe marks and things by the front door. There was higher wattage light bulbs in there. I think we put 100-watt, 200-watt light bulbs because it was like nothing. This whole tub cost about $24 to put together. So pretty minimal, but it had 2 light bulbs in there and they were 100-watt. And we were talking about make every room look as bright as possible. We had a small bottle of aspirin in there. It's like, this is for all the showings that call you last minute or the feedback that you don't get that drives you crazy and give you a headache. So you can take a headache and get through this process. Selling a house is not necessarily fun, right? So we kind of set that. But then we had a folder in there with all the paperwork, like the seller's disclosure, a sample contract. And on that note, it said, here's a sample contract. We want you to read through the fine print. And there was even a highlighter in there. Highlight anything that you have questions about. We could talk about that when I come over. So remember I said earlier, it's to shortcut the process, to shorten up that time frame. So those packets really shortcutted the process if they did it. I will tell you that tracking is super important. So one of the things that we tracked was it getting us more listings? And from a tracking standpoint, our conversion rate on appointment to listings of who actually listed, it did not change our number at all. So it wasn't getting us anything there for that $24. I was hoping it would have brought it up just a % or two higher to make it, that would like justify the $24 because it got me one extra listing that I might not have gotten. We were pretty much at 97% list rate, meaning that I would go on 100 listing appointments, 50 of them would actually list their house. And of those 50, 47 would list with the team. 3 out of 50, 3 out of those would list with somebody else. So out of 100 listing appointments, we were at 97%, but only half of them actually went on the market. The other half are still in the thinking stage. They hadn't done anything yet. So we were around 97% conversion rate from appointment to listing. That number didn't change using the tub for a full year. We got really cool reviews from people who thought they were cool and fun, and they were sitting on the counter when we walked in. So in the earlier part of my business, that would have been, I did stuff like that. But because most of our business came in from the database, we didn't have to do that as much. But that is an awesome way to gain some wow factor, right? But that pre-listing packet was inside the tub as well for them to fill out some paperwork ahead of time and get that done. Hopefully that's an idea to, again, that's a value proposition that you're preparing them for the sale of their home. And I don't know if there's a lot of agents doing that. I don't know if anybody's really doing it. And as fast as the market moves today, you might be the only one doing it, right? Especially when you're trying to get that appointment as soon as possible and you want them on the market as soon as possible. That means you have to have a process set up to make it all happen really fast. All right, so let's jump into the listing presentation part of it. Again, there are so many listing presentation styles and information that you can pull slides in, take slides out, and you can really customize this process. So what I would do is schedule some time to go through Command, to go into the listing presentations in the library and just skim through them. And really, I mean, if you're a newer agent, pick the slides that you know you could talk about. Or if you see a couple of slides in there that go back to the beginning of this presentation or this session where they were talking about what sellers are looking for, you want those slides in your presentation. And then you want to master those slides and make sure you talk about them, because those were the 5 or 6 things that every seller is wanting you to do for them. But that's all in Command. It's all there. If you're going to see your sphere, or you really work your master list and get connected with people and then stay in touch with them, when you see the phone starting to ring and come back to you, it's not probably as critical to have whatever this slide or this particular one or that particular one. In fact, you might even go with more as you're doing this with your sphere and ask them if that's an important slide. You know, was there any slides in there I could cut out? Was this presentation too long? You get to ask them some stuff at the end that you wouldn't normally ask a seller, so that you're getting ready to go. And man, I'm telling you guys, if you do this with 3, 4, 5 people, you'll have your confidence level of sitting down and doing a seller presentation will be through the roof. I mean, you'll be talking like you've been selling real estate forever. It doesn't take very many of these. That confidence level doesn't come in and you don't have that strength in the conversation is when you do one and then you don't do another one for a month or 2. And then you do another one, you don't do another one for 2 weeks. That distance in between is like starting over new every single time. So the more of these you can do quicker, you're going to sound like a pro. I mean, you're going to figure it out real quick. So anyway, the essentials page, what their needs come first. That could be your value proposition. It's like there's a lot of real estate agents in town, and when you choose me, I'm available. Like, I'm answering your questions. You get a live person on the phone. When you call, I call you back, right? Things like that. So that's a good one to leave in there to really talk about your value proposition around those things that they're looking for. Presenting the listing presentation. So when you're sitting down doing that, you've got that either at one point, I used to have it on my laptop all the time, and I would like scroll through the slides. And then pretty soon I would open the laptop up and just kind of start talking, because I'd done it for years that way. And it just covered a couple of the slides. What I know about the listing presentation is you want to pick the 3 key things that they may have mentioned as to what is important about them moving or selling or any of that kind of stuff. Those are the 3 you want to make sure you top or that you address. But again, that's going to come with more comfortable, when you're more comfortable in the presentation and you've done it a few times. So I ran through the whole thing every time for probably 5 years. And then I started picking 2 or 3, and I'd bounce around to a couple slides. And I would only use those slides if they asked a question about it. Like, well, what about your commission? Can you take less? And then I go, oh, let me go back to that slide and show you why the commission amount is not going to affect the sale of your home, or whatever it was. So you can start bouncing around, but you got to start doing some, or you're not going to know what's in there. See if there is anything else in the Element script book. If I think I attached this to an email I sent out earlier, you can download this from the library, or from the Google page 2. They have all the listing presentation scripts in there, and that's the one part that we want you to take outside of the class and work on, or at least pull the script book out. Right now, if you actually do this, not if, when you actually start asking your sphere if you could come give them a value on their home and take them through the process and give their opinion, you're going to want this script book so you can look through those scripts. And whenever they ask you questions. They'll be a little bit stricter than if they were an actual seller. They'll ask you some crazy questions sometimes that if you started writing down objections in your objection book, your notebook, and you started finding the scripts, the 3 scripts you would use in place of that objection to get that appointment, that's when you can start getting really, really good at the scripts. And then this one for handing seller objections, that's the notebook. To actually start listening to everything they say. If you are calling people out and you want to give somebody an opinion or meet for a seller presentation and they give you a reason as to why not to meet, that's an objection. Go back to your book and figure out if you can find 2 or 3 scripts that you could have just thrown out there to maybe still get the appointment. That is the best way to really get better at getting the appointments, getting the appointments, getting the appointments. So at the listing appointment, the home walkthrough, you know, it's like when you show up at the door and they knock on the door, the old bold script is, well, we had an appointment at 8 o'clock and it's 8 o'clock and I'm here. And they'll laugh and you come on in. The one that I always did on the home walkthrough was I'd say, well, let's go on a quick, the grand tour. I would always say the grand tour. Let's take a quick grand tour of your house. And they'd laugh a little bit, go, I don't know about grand. It's like, yeah, let's just go through and show me around. Let me see what everything looks like. And I'm just kind of paying attention to stuff as I'm going through. I do know that the less you say, the better. You don't want to necessarily go through a walkthrough and ooh and all over their updates and all that stuff, because in their mind, they're thinking that the value is going to be probably even more than they thought. Doesn't matter what they think the value is. We don't want to necessarily increase it. We're still going to price the house at a value that we think we could sell it for. And if their value in their mind was lower, you're going to have great news. If their value in their mind is way higher than they thought, your market analysis is going to show them that it's just not going to be possible, right? So the walkthrough is just to kind of get an idea of, you know, what's your first impression when you walk through, and think in terms of what's the best house you've seen, that model homes that you've gone through. In fact, a good script on the walkthrough, this is just a script I use, and I say, what we want to do is stage the house. And if you're newer, you probably don't have a stager that you're calling and spending money on a stager up front, most likely not. I just stage. I say, this is my old HGTV rule. And I say the HGTV because everybody can relate to it, right? The HGTV rule of staging is to have no more than 1 or 2 things on every wall, shelf, and flat surface. That's just a script that I used forever, right? No more than 1 or 2 things on every wall, shelf, and flat surface. We want to neutralize the home. Now, there's 2 things that go along with that rule. So doesn't it sound like, I mean, it's like, okay, the rules of staging, they're relying on me to give them the information on this, kind of along the lines of what I need to fix. Well, what do you need to do to stage the house? So we want to neutralize the house so that when buyers come through, they picture their own stuff in the house, not somebody else's. So the only 2 rules of thumb that I add to that is no personal pictures stay out, because you don't want them looking at your family. You want them to see their family living in this house. They're in a stranger's house. That's not always comfortable, even if it's subconscious. The second thing is, the more we could turn this into a model home, and this just comes from experience, guys. If they're in a model home, don't you know you can stay there as long as you want? I mean, it's like you can sit down on the couch and get comfortable, look around at stuff. But if you walk into somebody's house, it's got a lot of stuff and it's got some boiling pot on the stove and they took off just for the showing, I mean, you're kind of getting in and out of there faster than you would really want to. So we want to neutralize the house and make them feel like they can stay as long as they need to. Because the benefit to the seller is that you would say, because when they stay here longer, they start moving their furniture in. Now, that is not something that probably any other realtor is going to actually tell you, but that's why we stage, not just because we want to look prettier. We want them to stay in your house longer than the other houses they might be looking at. So they're just things on the walkthrough that you want to just neutralize, look around, see what you think, assess what would need to be done to make it look as good as possible. And again, we go back to, if their motivation is to have the house on the market yesterday and they have a sense of urgency to get on the market, and I get there and it's a far ways away from being down to one or two things, I'm going to have to evaluate, like, is there any houses on the market? If there's zero competition and everything's selling for 20,000 more than they're asking, then I may not have to make them stage as much to get them on the market as soon as possible. And that's what actually brings me to the last part of our slide to close out the session. Good timing, 5 minutes to go. Closing the deal. So once you go through the process, and we'll have another session where we actually do the CMA, the pricing the house. And I kind of call my version the 10-minute accurate CMA. Takes 10 minutes to print the thing off. It gives you the range of supply and demand. And again, I will preface at that time, it is my process and my opinion that this works. Everybody can do it a lot of different ways, but the appraisal method, finding 3 comps and averaging the 3, I lost out on listings where my competition would show them 3 higher houses that averaged a higher price. And when the sellers are sitting there talking to both of us, and they don't know which one of us knows more than the other, even if the other agent did have more experience, it didn't matter. They told them a bigger number and showed them 3 that averaged that. And I showed them the 3 that were the real comps we should use. And they listed with them, I lost out. So that supply and demand method actually lets me move around based on some pre-qualifying questions at the time of the listing. So getting to close the deal, in that process, going through the house, just go on the grand tour, come back in, we sit down, say, now let's look at the values of the homes in the neighborhood. I'm kind of giving you the short process on this to get to the close. Here's the values of the neighborhood. Here's the values of your home in the area. Here's what's currently for sale. And I usually get into, so what do you guys think about value? What were you thinking your home was worth? Okay, that would put you here on the list. We go through that. And then the one script that I use, and this will come up again when we do the CMA, but to close the deal, there's 2 things that I'm doing here at the very end. The next piece after that is to say, let me ask you maybe a more direct question. If I were to just to write you a check today, fill it in, hand it to you, and the house is done, what amount do you guys, what amount are you hoping that amount would be? And if I'm at a $400,000 listing, they typically will respond with, well, 400,000, that'd be great. And then I would say, well, no, I mean, you guys have a loan on the house of 150, right? And I would have got that at the time. The pre-call on the caller sheet, I would have already asked them that. Do you know about what your loan is? So I could take a net sheet with me, right? So I know that they have a loan for 150,000, but they've also got commission. They've also got taxes. They've also got title fees and everything else that's on our net sheet. So I'd say, no, that's not what I meant. What I meant was after your loan's paid off, after all the costs, the taxes, the commission, the title insurance, all that stuff, if I cut you a check for what's left at the end of the day, what's that amount need to be? Because I want to get you the most possible, but I also want to make sure we at least hit the number that you were planning for. They most of the time have not planned for anything yet. So they're usually like, sometimes you'll have to say, what do you need it for? What are you using the money for? And I know this sounds personal, but the way you handle yourself throughout the deal, they feel connected and you're there to help them. And when you earn that trust, especially if they're through your database and you're going off of a call, it's a lot different than talking to strangers. It makes it so much easier to get all this stuff done the right way, right? So I say, what do you need it for? Well, we really wanted to put 20% down on the new house. Okay. And then if we could, we wanted to pay off our daughter's car. Okay. So what's that? 400,000 minus 150, they're probably going to net about $120,000. So the net sheet shows 120. They say we want 20% down car. Okay, what's that amount? So like 120, 115, somewhere like that. It's probably normally going to be like 100 is what they would say. You say, great, let's go over the cost. I told you I'd bring a net sheet to kind of show all the cost involved in selling the property and then what you would get at the end of the day. So then we start going through that. And sure enough, that amount is usually almost always going to be at or above what they told you they needed after everything was paid off. For some reason, sellers don't figure this number out. So you get the real number. Now, the second part of that is on closing the deal. And this is like huge for literally getting them to make the commitment. And when you use it, you will get them to say yes once in a while and it'll freak you out. But it literally is, let me ask you another question. So as we go through that, now we come to the last part, and they say, well, thank you, Allison. That was great information. We want to talk about it, figure out what we want to do. Say, great. So let me leave you with one last piece of information so you guys can make the best decision for you. Okay. And they're like, yeah, okay. I say, the only thing I want you to think about as you're having this discussion is between now and when you put your house on the market, whatever that time frame is, between now and when that sign goes in your front yard, there are buyers out there today that are waiting for their dream home to hit the market. Your house might be their dream home, but they won't know it until you're available for them to see it. So they might settle for something second. They might settle for second best if they don't even know your house is coming on the market. So all I'm saying is if you guys are absolutely moving, and I would have asked them, are you absolutely moving for sure? And this will almost always work if they say yes. Yeah, we're absolutely moving. We're building a new house. The hole is dug. And they might even say, well, we're digging the hole. Our new construction process has started. It's going to be ready in 4 months. Great. So between now and when you put your house on the market, the buyers are going to buy something else instead of yours. If you know for sure you're moving and you put your house on the market now, where you can capture all the buyers, today's buyers plus tomorrow's buyers, right? And somebody comes in and says, offers you a little under asking price and wants to move in 2 weeks, what are you going to say to that? And they're going to say, well, we couldn't take it. Our house isn't even going to be done for 6 months. Right. So what happens is if you wait till you think it's closer to your house being done, you lost these buyers. And now if a buyer offers you a little less and it's 1 week before your house is closing, you might take a little bit less on your house. So you can't ever sell your house too early. What you can do is say no to that buyer. But what happens is in turn, that buyer might say, well, I'll give you $20,000 more. Will you move out in 30 days? And if you got $20,000 more for your house, you might want to move into a hotel for a week. And if you don't, you'd still say, no, we don't. And then you're still going to have the same buyers later that you would have had anyway. But at least you had the opportunity for somebody that would buy your house and wait for your new construction to be done. We don't know what their situation is. So a lot of times people think sellers have to give up, but really sellers are in more control when they don't need to sell their house than when they have to sell their house. So that's a great script for closing the deal as well. I almost use it with caution, because if you got even just a little bit excited about that, I mean, it works. And then they usually turn, I don't know how, I mean, they're going to turn more often to each other and have a little discussion. If you don't really have a connection with them, they might say, can you give us a couple of minutes? All these scenarios have happened with everybody who uses this script. Agents, I track it, when they use it and what your results. And they were like, yeah, it's like they asked me to step out for a few minutes and I sat in the car and then they waved me back in and we listed it. I'm not saying it's 100%, because if they're not absolutely moving, they may not do it. But if you've done this well, I mean, they're going to say, yeah, let's go ahead and get it on the market more often than if you don't use that script and they don't list right away. So let me open it up for any questions. Any questions from anything that I've talked about? Oop. Was this good information? Did you get some good stuff out of it? And if so, what's like one thing you took away from it? Where did that go? Oh, go ahead.
I think just getting to the listing appointment and practicing the scripts, because I've definitely been in the same boat, or the boat like you talked about before. If you don't do it all the time, then every time it's kind of like starting over. And it's kind of how I feel when I do listing appointments. Like it's the first time in a while.
Yep. Great. All right. Well, thanks for showing up today. I actually just realized the slides weren't running. But did you follow everything okay without seeing the slide? There wasn't anything graphical really to see. We basically talked through it all. Was that okay not seeing the slides, or did you have your workbook?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, that's it for today. Hopefully we'll see you again on Wednesday.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.